Welcome to another episode of the Modern Day Brokerage Podcast. I'm here with Alankushmakov. My name's Tristan, co-founder of Become Best Brokerage. Super excited to be here today and talk about the 5 money models that Alan has plugged into his brokerage to scale to 280 agents. So, Alan, what's going on?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Just another day in paradise.
We finally figured the shit out. We're talking about the podcast equipment. That's what we're talking about. The rest of the stuff, we're still working on it.
Yeah. Only took us 30 minutes? No.
No, like an hour and a half. Yeah. So we got our own IT guy, and the IT guy is in Mexico right now. He is vacationing, so we're trying to do this without the IT guy. His name is Ari, and Ari, if you hear us or gonna watch us soon on this podcast, man, we need you. So it took us an hour and a half to get this whole thing set up, and I think it's working. The mics are working. Finally, the mics.
Or if you're watching this, you did miss probably a couple FaceTimes from me, and a couple text messages. So
All
right, well, let's dive in a little bit for anyone before we get into the 5 money models. Let's talk about how you even got to where you are. Everyone hears everyone's hearing us talk about, see how Alan hired 280 agents. Where did this all start? Where did everything start off?
Well, I mean, it started as far as hiring 280 agents, or just like my backstory, the journey.
Like the journey from real estate to even opening up a brokerage to even getting you to that.
Yeah, man. I mean, let's go even, past that. I mean, so we came to this country like 33 years ago, right? We moved here from former Soviet Union as refugees, and it was 5 of us, 2 of my siblings, plus my parents, and we ended up in New York City. And the reason we ended up in New York City is because my dad's aunt, she was our sponsor. So she lived in New York City, elderly lady, a sweetheart, no kids. And she was our sponsor. Basically, she told the government of the United States that I'll take care of them. They can live with me. So we got here on Christmas Day, 1990. With like $550 in our pockets. So no English language, no jobs, nothing, some money. And my dad's aunt, who was at that time like 74, 75 years old. Wow. So a couple of weeks we spent time with her. We lived in her 1-bedroom apartment. Then we found a place like a junior, which is kind of a little bit bigger size than a 1-bedroom. And went to school, started going to school, I think 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. I was 12 turning into 13. And, man, school was tough.
Yeah. How did they teach you? Like you said, you didn't even know English. You went straight into school, or?
No, I mean, we were learning German, back in former Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, no words of English, no American clothes. Going to school. And then, of course, that age when you're like 12, 13 years old, I mean, the kids can be very cruel. So I remember one of the days, I think it was my first or second week in school, and one of the kids left a stick of deodorant on my desk. So, I mean, stuff like that, and just not able to express myself, not able to, have a conversation, with people in general, some of the students, and then of course teachers. And I remember there were days when I would come home and I would cry. Like in my bed, I would cry. I was like, man, I cannot believe this is happening. But I had no choice. I mean, I had to go to school because, you go to school to get better, you go to school to learn English, and I wanted to learn English as quickly as possible. So this way I can adapt and I can start, going out there and becoming more American, if you will. Also at the same time, I got a job. That was my first job ever, which was handing out flyers for like $1.50 an hour. Mm-hmm. So it was like a tarot card reader. She was a psychic. And she's like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So she would like give me like a stack of flyers, and I would be standing outside of the shopping mall on Queens Boulevard. And I would hand out flyers after school. So I finished school like around 2:30, 3 o'clock. I would pick up the stack. And from like 3:30 till about 7 or 8 o'clock, I would be handing out flyers, making $1.50 an hour. And then bringing that money home. So this way we can go and, buy some groceries, and I can help out parents and also buy some American clothes. That was also important. So since then, I always had a job, and going through what I went through, and I think a lot of kids in general go through a lot of things, especially during that age. I mean, bullying and everything that is going on right now. I mean, I got kids right now, 15, 12, and 11. So the stuff that they share with me, I mean, it's tough, right? Yeah. But it really toughened me up, and really kind of almost prepared me for the journey ahead, if you will. So fast forward, graduated high school, decided to go to college. The college was not really for me. My degree was in marketing, and I realized, marketing after about a year and a half, went to St. John's University and everything like that. But the reason I actually went, because there were so many good-looking girls. I was like, might as well just go. That was an expensive lesson. So after about a year and a half, I dropped from college, and actually at that time, the IT, the computers, all of that was the rage. That was like 1996, 7. And I was like, man, I'm going to go to a computer school. So I got into a computer school, and then got a job in this company called Systemax, which is like a computer company. It wasn't my first corporate job when I was selling, and selling computer equipment. That's what I did. Wasn't making that much money, but I met a guy. His name is John Lederer, and he was like my mentor, right? So he was my manager. I think a year later, he got another job opportunity in New York City. So, he reached out to me and said, hey, come work for me in sales, software sales. So that was my second corporate job, which was software sales, and then consulting as well. I did that with that company. Got married 2020. Actually 2000, year 2000, not 2020.
I was about to say.
So yeah, 23 years ago, 23 and a half years ago almost, right? Got married to a beautiful girl, Alex. And we have three amazing kids. And then 2003 made my journey this way to Arizona. So 20 years ago, decided to arrive to Phoenix Airport. It was May 1st. And it was like 105 degrees outside. So
welcome.
Yeah, we were kind of we're fortunate like this year, like in May, it was like 90s, right? Yeah. It wasn't 100. We started finally getting like 104, 105. Today, I think it's like 110, whatever it is.
A little more maybe.
But man, May and June has been pretty nice, pretty cool, right? According to the previous years, right? So, with the same company. So I moved with the same company. And then like literally 2-3 months later, I was building a house. That was my first house. I was building a house. I moved into a new home. And then they called me up and said, hey, you know what? We have to let you go. And we're like, really? What the hell? And I was making pretty good money. Yeah. 6 figures, 25 years old, just bought a house, moved into a beautiful home. And they're like, we got to let you go. So I was like, man, what do I do? So at first I was like thinking, getting another job. Yeah. But then my brother-in-law, who also moved here, approached me and said, hey, you know what? Why don't we start like a limo business? So we started a limo business with 2 cars. He was driving. I was really kind of focusing on the back office, marketing, sales, dispatching, and all of that stuff. So we had a pretty good partnership, and we grew that company from 2 cars. I think at one point we had like 23, 24 vehicles, making pretty good money finally. But the first 2.5, 3 years were tough. I was working 17, 18 hours a day, like nonstop, because with the transportation business, with the limo business, executive sedan business, I don't know how much you know about it, but it's like, man, like you're pretty much on call 24/7. Like, and
can imagine.
we signed accounts with hotels, and you would get calls like at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, scheduling drivers for 4 o'clock pickups and 5 o'clock pickups in the morning. So, and then at 4 o'clock, you got to be up as well because, you know, they're calling you from the hotel asking you, hey, where's the driver? Or the driver's picking up the client and it's like, hey, you know what? I'm mobile. I'm heading to the airport. So you're basically sleeping like 3-4 hours a day, 5 hours a day. So that was the first 3 years, and it was tough, it was difficult, but I was young, I was stupid, you know, I didn't realize how hard it was. But we worked and we grew the company, and things were started like really looking up, and then 2008 happened, the Great Recession, and everything stopped. Like literally, our business like nosedived.
So you immediately felt it, or?
Yeah, I mean, we felt it really quickly because a lot of our business was retail. A lot of our business was like, man, people like celebrating refis and flips, you know, nights on the town and like, you know, like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and also there are some, you know, like bachelorette parties, bachelor parties, you know, weddings, in corporate stuff, but the majority of it was retail, right? And everything just kind of stopped. And here we have we got a bunch of employees. We got a bunch of cars. Most of those cars are financed. We have insurance on every vehicle. And insurance, commercial insurance is not cheap. And then, of course, you have the off season. So like from October to like May, that's when you're like super busy. You're making lots of money. And then from May to like October, you're like, your business drops because nobody here during the summer, right? So it was tough. I mean, our business dropped by 60, 70%, 80%. And we had to let go a bunch of people. We had to like sell a bunch of cars. Some of our cars were repossessed as well. And then on top of that, I overextended myself financially, buying a few properties, betting on appreciation. And even though I had tenants in there, I mean, the tenants were not covering the mortgage, right? So let's say my mortgage was like $1,700, but the tenants were only paying like $1,100 or $1,200. So every single month.
So were you like betting that?
Yeah, so everybody was betting. I mean, everybody was buying properties at that time. I mean, you're young at that time, but 2004, 2005, 2006, I mean, dude, like people were just buying properties left and right without any proof of income, right? I mean, I know this one guy, he's no longer with us, unfortunately, but this guy didn't really have a job, but he, at one point, I think he had like 20 plus properties. Like, yeah, it's all stated income, which you know, that's what a lot of people did, right? But they were all doing this because they were betting on this crazy appreciation, right? They're like, if I buy it for 300 today, 6 months down the road, it will be worth like 360, 380, possibly even higher. I can flip it, I can sell it, and walk away with like 60 grand or 80 grand, right?
Yeah.
So how can I just do more of that? And then everything just collapsed. The bottom fell, and you know it imploded. And I had 5 properties that were all upside down, and I also leveraged my personal residence, and my house was also upside down. While all this time is happening, like we had our first baby girl, Natanella, and you know, and then after that, my wife was pregnant with our second one, and this is all happening.
And how old are you at this time?
So this was 2007, 2008. So what are we looking at, about 15 years ago? Yeah, 15, 16 years ago. So that was when I was like 30 years old, 29, 30 years old.
Okay, wow. So you're still pretty young to experience all of this stuff.
Yeah, I never experienced anything like this, right? I mean, this was
especially at 30.
Yeah, I mean, dude. I mean, there were days when I didn't really want to like get out of the bed.
Yeah.
Like I was under the blanket, like saying, "Holy shit!" Like think about it, right? Like when you're breaking the news to your employees that you have to let them go, the creditors are calling you, the mortgage companies are sending you letters, like all of this stuff happening, and you're like, "Wow!" And then on top of it, like. My wife is pregnant with our second one, and obviously, clearly, I mean, I mean, she's worried, you know, and you think about, man, it's not just me, it's my wife, it's our daughter, and then obviously our second one on the way. So we decided that she would actually, she go back to New York and spend the last like trimester with her parents while I'll figure things out here.
Yeah.
Which probably, I mean, that time I thought it was a smart decision because I didn't really want her to stress.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really want it to stress because it was tough, man. We're losing our rental properties. We're losing our primary home. The rental market was crazy because everybody was losing. Everybody's trying to find a rental. And then like people would actually like secure a rental. And then like literally a month later, they have a notice from the bank saying like it's in foreclosure.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I just gave a freaking security deposit, like cleaning fee and everything like that. And now you gotta be checked out. You got to check out. So you got to move out. So we finally able to find a rental up in Anthem, you know, and I was so like, it was such a relief for me. I was able to move out by myself. And then during that time, my wife was there, you know, giving birth. And I think the lowest part of my life at that point was the fact that, and probably still is like when she was there giving birth, I was not there. Yeah. Like I was trying to figure shit out here, trying to figure out things financially with the home and everything like that. And I was financially also not in great situation. I was broke essentially, right? So even just the notion of going there, flying there, spending money was like for me like, oh man, that's an extra burden, right? But I didn't give up. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I did not shut down my company. Yeah, we had to let go a lot of people. Yeah, we had to sell a bunch of cars, repossess car, whatever it is. I didn't shut down, right? Because I was like, look, I can like shut everything down. I can curl up. I can sit in my bed and, you know, and don't do anything and just say, why me, why me, why me? Or I just like figure shit out. I'll do things, right? I just get up every morning and try my best and tackle every single problem at a time. And it took some time. It took like literally 2.5, 3 years, right? But we pivoted as a company. We were no longer doing retail stuff. We were doing like most of it 95% corporate. I signed a couple of large corporate accounts that were sending us a lot of jobs, you know. And then in 2012, I decided to sell the company, took a little sabbatical. And the reason I sold the company was because I just did not see the future with it. Like I did it for almost 10 years and I tried everything. And when you get to the point where you're just not excited about it anymore, like I would not get excited about certain opportunities, you know, big clients or any, I was not getting like that urge to grow and expand, right? That urge was gone. That passion was gone. And for me, it was time for me to say, you know what, next chapter. Yeah. So the next chapter, real estate. And I think that's what we're going to talk about, real estate. Right?
Yep. Do you think, I mean, I know you're going to dive into that stuff, but how much did, you know, your past experiences kind of play out and, you know, help shape you to set up your, do you give a lot of credit to all of those, even though they're different businesses? I mean, what are like some key things that you brought over to your real estate business that you learned with all of
lot?
those?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, what happened when, again, I mean, even going back, growing up in the former Soviet Union, right? When you don't have freedoms, you everything is centralized. You got to constantly watch your back, constantly fear for what you say. You know, like it's not really what you know, it's who you know. Like growing up there, we were raised in a way where like you can say certain things. You got to watch again what you say. You cannot dress certain way. Like I remember my dad purposely would not buy a brand new car because if you buy a brand new car, you know, you get flagged. People start talking, you know, and then that stuff goes to the government officials, right? So the stuff like that. And then obviously, you know, coming to this country with nothing, and going through everything that we went through the first year and a half to 2 years. And even during my teenage years, like 14, 15, 16, what happened is, I forgot to mention, like my dad decided to move back to Russia. So for almost 6 years, we grew up, like 2 of my siblings, my mom, we grew up by ourselves. So my mom worked 2 jobs, sometimes even 3 jobs. I worked, my sister worked, right? So we worked to support ourselves, right? So going through all of that, I grew up pretty fast. And sometimes people ask me, it's like, man, why did you get married so early? Like I was 22 years old when I got married. And I think the biggest reason is because, man, I grew up so fast. I'm like, from age 12 on, I didn't really have a childhood. Like I did not go outside and play football or basketball or any of that stuff because I had school. And after school, I would work.
Yeah.
That was my life. And since then, I've been working. All this time, I've been working, right? If you think about it, right? People ask me, what are your hobbies? I was like, my hobbies are my family and my business. Those are my hobbies, right? So, yeah, but going back to your question, so that, and then, of course, what happened in 2007, 2008. Then when I got licensed 2013, right, became a real estate agent. And I shared the story many times, man. The first 6 months were hard, very difficult for several different reasons. Number one, my dad was diagnosed with colon cancer, so that was bad. And he's at that time was in New York. My parents were in New York at that time, 2,500 miles away. So you're trying to help him, you can't. You're here and you're starting this new venture, and they're there. So that was stressful. Then obviously getting licensed, and then obviously like brand new agent, there's no salary, there's no hourly pay, like it's all commission based.
Yeah.
So, and then I decided to go with probably the most difficult lead source that is out there, in my experience at least, which is cold calling expireds, and cancel listings, right?
Yeah.
So here I am at 7 o'clock in the morning in the office at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm pounding the phones and I'm getting rejected. Like I'm getting rejected left and right. And I'm studying scripts. At that time, I would download scripts from Mike Ferry and I would just like do that, role play with myself. And I would just dial and dial and dial. I would get rejected. And finally I would get a listing appointment. I would go. And I would get rejected again, right? Because again, like I didn't know how to like handle objections. I didn't have a presentation, did not really lead with any like real value proposition. My offers were weak. Like it was tough. The first 6 months, didn't make any money. I remember after a couple of months, again, that's all happening. My dad is sick and I'm stressing out because at that time I already have 3 kids under age of 5. And our daycare bill alone is like $2,100. I think $2,000 or $2,100 a month for those 3 kids. My wife had to work, thank God. And I'm stressing out because we have all these bills. You know, we have a mortgage, we have daycare bill, we have car payments, we have food, obviously, and all that. It's like $5,000, $6,000 every single month. And I'm not making any money. And I'm accustomed to making money. And I'm not making money. I'm working like 10, 11, 12, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not making money. And then because of all that stress, I started having these symptoms. At first I was like, man, what's going on with my GI tract, right? With my stomach, right? And, you know, like I would like have stomach pains and I would have to go to the bathroom. Number 2. And it's just happening more and more and more, like 3 times a day, 5 times a day, 10 times a day, 15 times a day. Like, what the fuck is going on? So I went to the specialist, and they're like, well, we got to do the colonoscopy and endoscopy. So I don't know if you know what colonoscopy is.
Yeah.
It's
we
not,
don't have to get into detail.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Too much.
It might be a little too much.
Anyway, but think about it. Like
Yeah.
I'm like 30, 35 years old at that time.
So stress was a big part
Stress,
of it?
I think, was a big factor of it. Stress, I think. So they diagnosed me with this autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis. And I was like, what the fuck is that? What is that? And they're like, oh, it's just, you have an issue with your large colon, right? And, you got to be able, it's chronic, right? We got to put it in a remission. So how do we put it in a remission? Well, we got to give you a bunch of meds, and you have to be like on this diet and everything like that. So meds didn't really work. Diet didn't really do that much, So for a year and a half, no, actually from 2013 to 2015, so 2 years, I was dealing with this. 2 years, while again, getting into the real estate world, like new, trying to get my business jump-started, 3 kids, a mortgage, my dad, and now this. And there are days, like physically, I was not able to really do that much because, like, think about it. You're driving on a freeway, right? And you have these urges to go to the bathroom. And you have to be constantly thinking, like, man, I better be at a place where there's like a restroom, right? So that was the case for 2 years. But again, everything that happened in the early stages of my life happened when we moved here from former Soviet Union. Then what happened in 2008, 2009, 2010 really hardened me to, again, like, don't buckle under pressure, right? And people have a tendency of buckling under pressure quite a bit. All of us do. But like for me, like, dude, like when I go through a pressure points, like I try to push through instead of like retrieving. And that's like in real estate. Like in real estate sales, I tell to my agents all the time, you're going to encounter pressure. There's always going to be pressure. In the early stages of your career, when you're growing, when you are like, feel like you already accomplished quite a bit, you have a successful business, there's always going to be pressure, right? And pressure helps you with clarity. Pressure creates diamonds, that old saying, right? So you have a choice to push through or to raise a flag, white flag, and say, you know what, I'm going to go back to my comfort zone. And for me, I don't want to go back to my comfort zone, which was getting a job, and nothing wrong with getting a job, but that's not really my vision. My vision is like build businesses. That's what I enjoyed. So the first year was 6 months, no business coming in, but I was building something. And that's what really also kept me going, is the fact that I was getting better. My calls were getting better. My conversations were much sharper. My objection handling was getting dialed in. My meetings with the sellers were getting better and improving every single time. And finally, I got my first listing. It was a $100,000 listing right off 83rd Avenue in Camelback. Sold that baby, and I felt like I made like $2.5 million. It was only like $2,500 commission, but it felt so good. It was a win, and it gave me the confidence. Almost kind of gave me the wins in my sales, right? So, you know what? I can do this again, and I can do this again, and I can do this again. So by the end of the year, I think I closed like 16 transactions or something like that. Doubled it to 35 my second year. Doubled it again to 75 my third year with an assistant. And that's how it all kind of continued.
I noticed you said with an assistant. How important, I know we're going to kind of be diving into a little bit of this, but for anyone who's watching this, how important, I mean, you always talk about who, not how. How much of a difference did that make for you too?
It was a huge difference. Yeah, dude. I mean, it was a huge difference between like I remember my second year, right? And I was making pretty good money. I closed
35 transactions.
35. I think I probably made about $200,000 that year, right?
Yeah.
Which is very good money, right? But I was sitting like at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the evening, man, like on a couch with my laptop on, pushing out paperwork. I mean, how many people can relate to it?
Yeah.
Like pushing out paperwork, chasing buyers or sellers or uploading stuff for my broker, Like, and I'm like sitting there, and my kids, like trying to get my attention. My wife is trying to have a conversation with me, and I'm doing this 8:00 in the evening, and I'm like, dude, I'm like making pretty good money. Like I'm making like $200,000. What the hell? What am I doing? Why am I doing the job of someone who I can hire for $15 an hour? Like, why? And it dawned on me, I was like, why can't I just hire somebody who can do this for me?
Yeah.
Right? So the next day, I posted on Craigslist, and I got a bunch of applicants. It was a decision, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a decision. I made a decision that evening that it cannot be the same going forward. That was a decision. And I didn't care how, I didn't care who. I just made a decision that day that I'm not going to do this again. Like, I need help.
Yep. And it's funny because, I mean, it made your time so valuable. I mean, you got rid of those tasks. So that it was already, it was making you more productive and everything. But on top of that, it made you even more money the next year, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it, right? So, like, well, let's unpack the assistant.
Yeah.
Hire, right? So the first one I hired, part-time. My definition of part-time is 20, 25 hours a week. Her definition of part-time was 5 hours a week.
So part-time.
So I was like, it's not working out. Like, it's
Yeah.
not working out. Like, like work 1 hour a day. That's not going to work out for me. I need more. So the second one, she was a sweetheart. She was really nice. But every time there was an issue with a client, there was an overbearing agent. You know, those agents, I've been in business for 20 years. Like they know everything. She would get emotional about it. And I was like, dude, I don't want to deal with this stuff. I don't want to, So my third one was a young gal. She was like 21, 22 years old. She was working for this agent. He didn't have a consistency in his business. And she was a referral from an agent, my previous brokerage. So I gave her a try. And I mean, she showed the fact that she wanted to learn. She wanted to get better. I would show her something. She would just do it the right way. And literally, like you mentioned, like my business went from 35 transactions to 75 transactions next year without me spending any more money on marketing or lead gen or any of that stuff. Why? Because she handled essentially the operations. Like she did operations, writing contracts, sending contracts, scheduling appointments for me, showing appointments, scheduling, listing, like she did like that stuff that I was just not really enjoyed doing it or didn't feel like it was dollar productive for me. And she was also a buffer between my clients and me. So like, let's say there are certain questions like how come the sign is not installed on this side of my yard, like that kind of stuff. She would handle all of that. So for me, that was like, wow, like really? Like I have somebody who takes care of all of that and my business doubles. And I think that year I did like $500,000. It was like, it's no brainer.
And it's crazy. Some people won't want to bite that bullet because they feel like they're spending money, but it really is going.
Well, I was paying her pretty good money. I was paying her $40,000 that year or $45,000. But
what did that make you?
But I know, and not only that, like there's a tendency to overthink this in a way where like, oh my gosh, she's gonna cost me $50,000 or $60,000. Not really, because for the first 30 to 60 days, you will know if she's worth it or not. You will know if she's gonna make your job easier or not. So at most, let's say you take a $40,000 a year. Okay, at most, you're talking about spending like $5,000. But if she works out, now you got somebody who's going to help you to make double, if not even triple, what you made. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
So don't get paralyzed by the whole notion that, oh my gosh, they're going to cost me like a fortune. Well, I mean, you got to invest in your business. And plus, if you really think about it, like we are our biggest bottleneck. Yeah. If you want to make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, you should not be doing the tasks of someone who's making $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 a year. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something I was thinking about too, is like, even nowadays, I know that we can't use them for everything, but with, where the day and age we're in right now, having even like a virtual assistant to help you with that kind of stuff. I mean, the amount of leverage we have right now is it's crazy.
Look, I mean, in our companies, right? I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 VAs.
Yeah, probably more.
Right,
video
and they
editors,
probably
so-
handle about 50 to 60% of our workload. Right? Think about it, right? And we're definitely going to double down on it. We're going to add more and more and more and more. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right? Operations, we got 2 VAs. Marketing, we have 2 VA. Coaching, we got VAs, right? And they're doing phenomenal work for us. I don't know where we would be right now, honestly, without the VAs, right?
Yeah.
But again, you're not, you got somebody who's actually doing the tasks that either you have to do it yourself, or you have to hire somebody here internally and pay that individual $20, $25, $30, $40 an hour to do it. And they do it for $4 or $5 an hour.
Yeah. So, all right. So you went from, you went from 35, 75 transactions. You had your with your assistant. Can you walk me through the process of then becoming a team leader, then to opening the doors of Best Homes Real Estate?
Yeah, so the team leader part of it really came out of necessity, right? I didn't really like know that much about team building in terms of
You needed more.
Well, here's what I decided to do. Like, I think the third quarter of 2015, I started generating buyer leads. So I was always listing heavy. Always. There's that old saying, you list to last. And that's exactly what I followed, right? For me, like, it's always listings. If I have listings, I can leverage those listings and I will find buyers, or the buyers will find me, right? So I started generating buyer leads and started having some success. Initially, I did not have a success, but then I hired a coach. We're able to start seeing some really good results.
But wait, by the way, what kind of coach? Was it a conversions coach or a lead coach?
Yeah, so a coach that specialized in lead, buyer leads, conversion, follow-up systems and sequences.
So it was in the follow-up and the conversion.
Yeah. So I am always very intentional, strategic in terms of like who to hire. So like I would hire a coach specifically for the problem, the need that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to pay, whether it's like a phone call, or let's say I work with that person for a week or two or a month or two, whatever that is. I want to fix the problem.
Yep.
I don't want to deal with it for the next 6 to 12 months trying to figure out myself, because time costs you money. And it's not just the time, it's the energy, the frustration, the fact that, like, I remember when I started investing in buyer leads, and man, the first like month or two, I was not getting anywhere. I was not making any connections. I was not booking any appointments. I was like, this is shit. These leads are crap. Like, why am I spending all this money for what? Right? But then I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be someone there that actually doing it and doing it at a much higher level. And I decided to hire a person, and I had that person for 3 months. And like literally in the next 12 months, I think I spent like 15 grand on the platform, which at that time was Real Geeks. And then the ad spend. And I think made like $125,000 or $130,000 in gross commission income. So that was like a 10x return.
Yep.
Right? But here's what started happening is I started like driving around town with buyers and showing them homes, which I don't have a problem with it. But for me, again, time is very important. I can spend 10 hours with a seller, get a listing and go through the entire process, or I can spend like 25, 30, 40, 50 hours with a buyer. Same commission check. And most of the time, the seller is also going to be a buyer, so there are 2 commission checks. Mm-hmm. So for me, it didn't really make sense financially to spend hours and hours and hours and hours with a buyer driving around town to make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So that's where the leverage comes in, right? So I had a leverage when it comes to the admin work. I was like, why not have a leverage when it comes to actually showings? Because showings took the most of my time. Man, I remember there was a day when I drove all the way to AJ, Apache Junction from Glendale.
Oh, wow.
It took like an hour and a half. We were supposed to see three houses. And we looked at one, and husband and wife got into the argument because it was like color of something. I don't remember. It was a kitchen or flooring. It was something. And it just blew up to the point where he was like, screw it. I'm not going to buy the house. And she's like, you know what? I don't care. I can live in a trailer. I don't care. And they just left. And I drove all the way there, hour and a half. And then hour and a half coming back to really showing one house for 5 minutes. And I said, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better way.
Hopefully.
So same thing. I was like, there's got to be a better way. So then I hired showing assistants. Like that was the precursor for me saying, I made a decision. I was like, there's got to be a better way. Like with an assistant, the same thing. I'm not going to do this again. There's got to be a better way. So I hired showing assistants. I would still meet with the buyers in an office or in a coffee shop. I will introduce them to my showing assistant or showing agent, and then they would go show homes, and I would pay them like per door. And that's how it all started. And those showing assistants, some of them became my agents. And in 2016, that's when I officially launched a team where it was me, the team leader, essentially focusing primarily on the listings, and then having, I think the first year, I think we had 5 agents that were buyer's agents.
Wow. Okay. So your first year you had five agents.
Yeah, I think right off the bat I hired 5, and then by the end of the year, just 1 left.
So you only had 1, but you hired 5. So that kind of brings up an important point that I hear you talk about all the time. Why are you pro hiring? And I think that's a perfect example. I mean, if you have 10 agents, who knows, you could end up with 2 at the end of the year if you're not proactive about looking for talent.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, hiring, especially in our world, right? Whether you're a team leader or a broker owner or brokerage owner, it's like you got to be constantly hiring. Yeah. Like if you stop hiring, if you start recruiting, man, your agents are going to leave you eventually. It may not happen right away, but they will leave you eventually. Like for me, the first year as a team leader, man, we hired 5 agents, and I was thinking like I'm on a cloud 9. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to have these freaking agents, each of them, and I had this pro forma sheet, right? And I was like, each of them is going to sell 25, 30 homes. I'm going to sell like 80 homes myself. We're going to sell like 300 homes altogether. I'm going to make all this money. And guess what happened? Yeah.
It's all gone.
5 of them sold combined, cumulatively combined, they sold 11 homes that year.
Wow.
11. I did like 87 by myself, and they did 11.
Wow.
And all of that time, energy,
yeah, you probably could have made more than what you took.
Oh,
home
100%, absolutely, right?
At the time,
you're right. And 1 left, 4 the other ones that did not work out. So I was like, man, there's got to be a way. Right? It's like, what do I do? Do I go back to being a solo agent and having maybe 2, 3 admins? Yeah. But I didn't want to give up. Again, I didn't want to raise the white flag. Like, I just don't want to give up. I find a solution. So I hired a coach. And we went and hired 10 agents the next year, my second year as a team leader. And same thing essentially happened. Again, my mistake this time around, because I said, oh, I got these 10 agents, I'm good. I don't need to hire. I need to now put in all my time and effort in training and coaching them. Well, here's the problem. You can train all you want, but if they're not really motivated to go out there and actually do it, the training's not going to work. You know, that old saying, you can lead the horse to the well, but you cannot make it drink, right? And I think there's a tendency when it comes to the team leaders or broker owners is like, man, I got all these tools, I got all these resources, I can train them, I can do all of this stuff. At the end of the day, if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. So I was betting on the training, I was betting on marketing, I was betting on the fact that I got the 10 right ones. And then by the end of the year, I remember we had like 3 or 4 left. Stop recruiting also. Stop recruiting. Again, That was my screw.
Yeah. So what made you you just didn't want to give up? That's why you kept going. I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't look like it. I mean, it couldn't have made that much of sense to you at that time to keep hiring, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, but like I would see some progress, right? Like I would see some progress. I would talk to the team leaders that are doing it a much higher level. I would, visit them.
So you saw the vision.
I was seeing. I was like, there's something there.
sense.
There's something there. There's something there, right? And by the way, again, you get better. You're gonna make mistakes. As a team leader, the first 2 years, I made tons of mistakes. Yeah. For me, I mean, they were costly, obviously, but they're all learning opportunities because I fixed most of them, right? It took time, but I fixed most of them. And then year number 3, when things are started really clicking, because I continue recruiting, some of these agents from year number 2 became like producing agents year number 3. I brought some really good ones as well on top of that. They were producing quite a bit. And then I started kind of seeing the results, right? Man, things are working, we got a good core of people and everything like that. So by year number 4, though, is when some of these agents started leaving. And they were leaving because they outgrew the team. They were closing deals, and they're like, well, I can do this on my own. They really stopped seeing the value being on a team. They wanted to build and develop their own marketing, their own brands. They wanted to do their own thing. And, that's when the whole planning of brokerage started.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right. Okay, so you had the team. You ended with about 10 agents. Or no, that wasn't.
Yeah, so my 4th year, we were at 15 agents, and I think we did like close to like 200 transactions or so.
200 transactions?
2019, yeah.
Wow. Okay, and then that's when you decided to make that jump to become a brokerage owner.
Yeah, because, I mean, there are several reasons for that, right? So like, I think the biggest was the fact that the platform for the team members was not big enough. Yeah. That's why they were leaving, right? I mean, they basically wanted to do their own thing. They want to build their own teams, right? Yeah. I was kind of losing those producing agents, and to bring or to attract or recruit producing agents to a team, it's hard. Like most of the time when you're like starting a team or growing a team, it usually consists of like newer agents, right? Or struggling agents.
So you're looking for like upcoming talent.
Right. So like imagine you're building up somebody that's doing like 20, 25 transactions or 30 transactions, and that person leaves, and then another agent follows that person, and then the third agent leaves, and combined they did like 70 transactions. And now try to find 3 agents that are doing 70 transactions to join your team. Most of them won't. Most of them will not do that, right? So who do you bring? You bring newer agents. You bring new agents. You bring struggling agents. And now you got to develop those agents. And it takes time. And it's a hit and miss. You just never know, right? So for me, it was like, man, the reason they're leaving is not because they're not enjoying working with me or like enjoying working with my staff or not getting the support. The reason they're doing it is because they outgrew the team. So, one of the reasons why I decided to start a brokerage was the fact that I want to make sure that the organization, the platform, the value proposition is much bigger than being on a team. Right? I mean, think about being on a team is like basically you cannot really brand yourself. The team leader is pretty much on every contract. The for sale sign is going to have team leaders information on it. Yeah. Every single lead is under a team. There are just not that many benefits, especially for an experienced agent or a producing agent to be on a team, right? And that's why they leave. So for me, it was like, man, I can continue doing this, and it's just going to be like a vicious cycle of bringing agents, developing those agents, and those agents leaving. Or, I have a much bigger platform, a brokerage where I can attract newer agents, struggling agents that are looking for consistency, and also top producers as well as team leaders to my organization. So that was the biggest reason why I decided to get into the brokerage world.
Okay. And so like for anyone, because, you know, with our coaching company, we talk to a lot of brokerage owners, a lot of team leaders. Some team leaders won't make that jump because they think that they'll be more profitable as a team.
Yeah.
So maybe that might be right and stuff, but like, why, you know, so why did you decide to do that? I mean, did you think the same thing, or did you kind of go in with a different mindset as far as opening up a brokerage? Like, what made you, because I hear people say it all the time, I'd rather just have my team, you know, it's going to make me more money. I don't have all the back end office expenses pretty much. That's like the biggest thing that I hear.
Yeah, and every team is a little bit different. I mean, we essentially ran it like a brokerage. Like, we had admin staff. I mean, we were the buffer between the designated broker and our agents. So like, most of the questions would actually come to us versus the designated broker, right? We actually had our own office, right? And most of our clients thought that they're dealing like with actual brokerage, right?
Yeah.
So every situation is a little bit different. I mean, for us, for me personally, like, I felt like I was capped and I wanted to scale. Like, I'm a huge believer in having like a smaller piece of a much bigger pie versus having a big piece of a smaller pie, right? And there are some team leaders out there like, oh, I want to have a smaller team, which is great, awesome. I'm not judging, but what happens, let's say you have 5 or 6 agents and they're doing great. What happens if 3 of them decide to start their own team? And that's like half of your revenue.
And your goal is to get them to start producing. So once they start producing more, they're bound to. They're
Oh, like, they're gonna leave
growth.
you.
They're gonna have growth. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
go through.
Agents are gonna leave you. That's not if. That's when.
Yeah.
Same thing with employees. Like, that's the reality. It's going to happen. So, like, I gave you an instance. My first 2 years, I hired agents, stopped hiring, stopped recruiting, and then by the end of the year, like, we only had a fraction of what we initially hired in terms of the agent count. So we got to be constantly bringing in talent. We have to be constantly searching for the talent, you know, because you will have where agents are going to leave for many different reasons. It doesn't even have to be you per se. It can be economics. Yeah. It can be economy, rising interest rates, low inventory. Like, everything else that is happening right now that is like out of our control, out of my control, also affects the agent count.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, we have these conversations with the broker owners, right, with our education company, and broker owners like, man, I just wish this agent sells more homes, or I just wish this agent, instead of selling 3 homes or 4 homes or 6 homes, sells like 10 homes. Instead of wishing and hoping, right, or even praying, and there's nothing wrong with praying, why not just find 2 more agents? Bring 2 more agents that will combine, do 10 deals.
Yeah. And it's more in your control. So,
yeah. Right? I mean, that's the way you're going to be able to, and the model is very predictable, right? The more agents you bring, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to sell more homes. You're going to have more deals.
Yeah.
More deals. More deals, more revenue. More revenue, most likely you're going to have a profit, right? And you're going to breathe much easier. There's not going to be that much pressure on you. Because the whole notion of being a broker owner or even team leader, where you're like in that 5 agent or 6 agent or 10 agent range, man, you're wearing multiple hats. You're overwhelmed. Like, you're doing so many things as a broker owner or a team leader, and you cannot expand, you cannot scale, because like, you have agents coming in, they leave, they're inconsistent, you're not generating enough revenue, and you cannot invest in your business, you cannot invest in the personnel, in the staff, the service is inconsistent, the support is inconsistent, and it's just a vicious cycle. You're almost gonna like, brokerage owners in particular, when they are between that 5 agent to like 20 agent range, even 25 agent range, and they've been there for years, they're in a freaking death valley. They're in death valley. And if that's the case, might as well just be a team. Like being a brokerage owner with 10 agents, 15 agents, I mean, you're wearing multiple hats. You're overwhelmed. You're overworked. You're probably most likely in production. And it's just one thing after another. Might as well just run a team or just be all in on production, have 2 admins, 3 admins, and be super profitable.
So that's kind of where you'd say like you need to make that decision probably when you're in that area.
Well,
you make a decision. Like you might as well be a team or make that decision and push to scale.
Yeah, man. I mean, so I gave you the reasons why I started brokerage. So the first one was the fact that I wanted to have a bigger pie, a bigger opportunity for my agents, and also for my staff to grow, to scale. Right. That's number one. Number two, I started thinking about like, what is my exit strategy? Like, I'm recruiting agents. I'm developing agents. Like, our job as leaders is create the environment where these agents can grow and flourish and succeed, right? Like culture is very important to us, as you know, right? But ultimately, like, what is the outcome? Like 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, like, do I have a sellable asset? And the more research I've done when it comes to like teams being sold, and I just didn't really see that many like teams being really sold, right? Now brokerages sell, teams not really, right? Also the same thing with the brokerages that are smaller, and typically with the small brokerages, I constantly see the broker owner is in production. Like I had a conversation yesterday with a broker owner, and he's got like 18 agents, and granted he's only been in business for about a year as a broker owner, but he does about 35% of the production.
So he has to take that out, right? Yeah.
Correct. So if you're going to be selling a brokerage and you're like 30% in terms of production of the brokerage, or 40, or some broker owners that we work with, when we start working with, they're like 50, 60, 70% of the entire brokerage production. Dude, you don't have a sellable business.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the reasons why I decided to phase out of my production, because eventually when I decide to sell it, man, they're going to discount heavily if I'm like doing 30, 40, 50% of the deals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So that's another reason why you want to grow, is because you want to have an exit strategy, a sellable asset that you can walk away with and make some money on it.
Wow. Okay. So that makes sense. And so just to kind of like start circling around the whole money model thing, I mean, that kind of answers, why recruiting is so important, obviously. But do you want to go ahead and kind of start breaking down then? I mean, you've built a successful brokerage, and just kind of like a side note too, I mean, just for anyone who's watching this, how much, I know you spend a lot of time on the business here, but how much time do you actually spend in your business at the brokerage now? Since you've been able to, like, what has this given you? Like, I mean, if you have to work in the business right now, how many hours would you say you have to put inside, like, with everything you got going on?
I mean, well, right now with everything that we're going on, I mean, and I enjoy being in my brokerage every day.
That's why I said on the business, because
So I think right now I just technically replaced myself on the recruiting side, which is the most important, right? So we recently hired Erica. She's our director of business development, and she's kind of taking over that role, and she's meeting with more agents, and she wrote in on about 4 agents already so far in the last 2 weeks. So that was probably the most important role. And by the way, I'm still going to be recruiting. I'm still going to be focusing my attention on top producers and team leaders, right? I will never stop. It's not just recruiting agents. It's also recruiting the talent, the leadership team as we grow. But I mean, to answer your question, I mean, right now I can probably say less than 10 hours a week.
Less than 10 hours.
Less than 10 hours a week. I mean, again, we got I mean, we got operations department in place. We got the compliance department in place. We got the marketing department in place. We have now a biz dev in place. So we got the core pieces intact in place. And obviously you have a layer of VAs that's supporting each department. So yeah, that allows me now to focus on our other business, which is the education business, consulting business that we have with you.
Yeah.
That will allow me to spend more time with our clients, and really helping them to grow and scale their brokerages, their teams through recruiting, through infrastructure building, hiring, branding, lead generation. Dude, everything that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years as a brokerage. I mean, we hired over 280 agents, in the last 3.5 years. And we built some cool models and the things that we're doing here internally. And basically, we're sharing everything with all our clients all over the country. That's what we're doing. So it will really help me to emphasize on that more. And then we got our stuff with title as well. As you know, we're relaunching the mortgage piece of it as well. The investment piece, and then property management, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, we got that with Ken and Noor. So there are other businesses, but again, I'm not actively in those businesses as I am when it comes to the brokerage as well as the education business.
Mm-hmm. So kind of like what you just talked about then, let's start breaking those down for any of the viewers or anyone who's listening. So you mentioned recruiting, hiring, infrastructure, the branding, lead gen, and all that stuff. So where should someone start when they think about recruiting? Recruiting is a big word that everyone uses. Recruit. But what does that mean? How do you look at recruiting? How do you structure? How do you set it up in order to be a successful brokerage?
Yeah, it's like leads, a lifeblood of a real estate agent. Recruiting agents is the lifeblood of the brokerage owner. Yeah. Simple, right? You have to make that decision. If you want to grow, you got to recruit. You have to. There's just no other way around it. Being small, like I said, you're in Death Valley. You're miserable. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'm sure there are brokerages that are small and they're doing phenomenally well, and that's where they want to be. Yeah. But by just speaking to the brokerages that are in that agent count range, most of them are hurting. Overall, the revenue for a lot of brokerages and also agents in the last 12 months, 14 months is down by as much as 25, 30%. So agents are not producing as much as they did before. Yeah. And we cannot make somebody to produce more. We can't. By training them more, it's not going to happen. By providing them more tools, it's not really going to happen. How it's going to happen is by bringing more agents. They may do less deals, but you have quantity. Yeah. Right? And we have to just realize that. So from the recruiting standpoint, you got to be able to have a method of recruiting that will help you predictably and systematically bring in agents. You got to have some sort of a method, a recruiting method. And that's something that we teach and coach and share with our clients. We have 3 main methods of bringing in agents. But even with one, you can definitely bring 3, 4, 5 agents every single month. But you have to be committed to it and do it every single month. It cannot be like I hired 4 agents and now I'm going to spend so much time on these 4 agents, I forget to recruit for the next 3 months.
Yeah. And so you said we have the 3 to 4 too. So why don't we really, you've tried, kind of outsourcing that and everything. One of the things that I think is really special about the brokerage is everything's in-house. Yeah. Why did you choose to do that rather than, stick to, hiring like I don't need to say names, but like sticking to like appointment setting companies or,
Well,
like
we have
some,
appointment setters as well. I mean, so I mean, so we generate leads, or let's say applicants or agent opportunities from three main sources. I mean, there are more like agent referrals, right? But like three main ones for us that have been working for us for the last 3.5 years. Job posts, Indeed, that's one. Events, that's two. And then cold outreach, that's three. And then number four, agent referrals, right? But those are the three main ones that are predictable, right? And those are the ones that really worked for us and still working for us, where we can bring 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 agents a month, right? While we continually develop our brand of our brokerage. Because when I started this brokerage, Tristan, January 14, 2020, we were a brand new brokerage with no name recognition. And in our MLS, we're in Metro Phoenix area, there are like about 2,400 brokerages. There are 100% brokerages. There are big box brokerages, well-known franchise. I mean, there are so many different brokerages, right? And then like a month and a half later, you know what happened, the C word.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So there was a shutdown. Agents were panicking. We had some agents that left the industry temporarily, then came back. We still were able to bring on like 75 or 76 agents the first year. Why? Because of, again, my decision that we're going to grow. No matter what happens. And by the way, that first like 2 to 3 weeks, a month, remember March into April, man, it was hard. Like I just started a brokerage. I mean, I put all of my chips on the table with a brokerage, with 7 or 8 agents and an admin.
Yep.
And I said, I'm going to do this. And then this all happened, right? And I could have retrieved. I could have said, you know what? Maybe it's not the right time. Let's go back being a team leader. Let's go back this and that. Absolutely not. I said, you know what? I'm going to be a recruit. I'm going to recruit. And I focused on the new agents. I focused on struggling agents. I focused on the top agents. I focused on everyone. Did I get rejected? Absolutely. It's like the same thing when I started in real estate 10 years ago. I was working expires and cancels. That's exactly what I was doing. I was cold calling for agents. And I was getting some success, but I was also getting rejected. Right? And the cold calling part it's okay. I mean, it works. I just did not see myself doing it for the rest of my career. It's not the most enjoying process, chasing agents. And it can become a grind. And when you don't do it, nothing happens. And I think eventually you want to build something like a brand where you can attract people into your world versus constantly like chasing them, right? There's that saying, amateurs chase, professionals attract. You want to do that. It takes time, by the way. It's still, like for us, after 3 years, we're still building our brand. It takes time.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, that's how I did it. But it was a decision and just going full force. Now, I was still in production. I had to be in production. That's how we paid our bills.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's a lot of brokerage owners out there kind of in the same situation. So,
yeah.
I mean, what would you say to them as far as like, where they're currently at right now? What's some advice maybe that you'd give to them in that current situation?
Yeah, man, stay in production as much as you have to.
But
like at least dedicate 10, 15 hours a week or 20 hours a week in attracting and recruiting agents. Right? For me, that was the case. Like I used to be like 60% in production, and then the rest of the time I would spend in recruiting agents, i.e. calling agents, meeting with agents, onboarding agents. That's what I was doing. Right? And the more agents you bring in, the more closings you're going to start experiencing. And once you start seeing the revenue that you're generating covering your expenses, then you have to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
The other way to go about it is to hire a staff where they can do a lot of the stuff that you're doing. If you can find a recruiter from day one that is great at this and can meet with the agents and bring the agents on board, awesome. I wasn't able to do that initially. Like my staff consisted, the first year it was Melissa, who's right now our director of operations, right? Then once we got to about 20 agents or so, it was David, who's our designated broker, in charge of compliance. And that's the whole, like the story about why I decided to hire somebody versus doing this myself. And I had a video on that. I did that video, and I had some comments. Not all of them are great, by the way.
Really, I haven't checked that out. I'll have to go take a look.
And then I came across you.
Yeah.
Right. And first you started as a third party contractor, vendor, and then you came on board to be to be our marketing guy. Mm-hmm. So the first year we had 3, and that's how we started growing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of covers I guess you could say even the first 2 then, the recruiting, all the systems and stuff you have set up. And then you started hiring. So maybe, I know you just kind of gave us a quick overview of like your first year of hiring. How did you scale from there? As far as we started getting virtual assistants, I believe was that year 2?
Yeah.
When we started hiring those. So, what's your advice for those? When did you know it was the right time to start doing that?
Yeah, I mean, my thought process is always like 3 years, right? Like 3 years, it takes 3 years to get the business up and running. I mean, there are people that can do it in a year, in half a year, year and a half, more power to them. But you got to give at least 2.5, 3 years, right? So during that period of time, you reinvest in the business. Right, you reinvest in your business. Again, like I was in production, I was supporting myself, but I was also supporting the company. And I was reinvesting in a company by hiring people that eventually will be responsible for all of the departments in my company, right? And you have to do that. Like we talk to the broker owners, and they got like 12 agents, 13 agents, and it's just them.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
They want to go from 12 agents to 25 agents, and it's just them.
Yeah.
I was like, you can't do everything yourself.
Yeah.
You got to have at least an admin, somebody who's like a buffer between you and the agents, somebody who can help you with onboarding, help you with the training, help to like answer some of the questions. Like you cannot do everything yourself. You're the biggest bottleneck then. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to recruit consistently because the agents that you brought in are just spending a lot of time with you. You're spending a lot of time with them, and it does not allow you to recruit more. Yeah. So hire an admin and then start hiring some other positions, right? I told you, like when I got to 20 agents, I decided to hire a designated broker. Why? Because I do not enjoy dealing with all of the bullshit of paperwork. I did not enjoy.
Isn't that why you hired
an assistant
in the first place?
It's the same thing. Now it's like chasing my agents for freaking initials, right? Like I didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to do that. I don't want to be responsible for that. Like we all have to, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have to know our strengths, our core competencies, and our weaknesses. We cannot be great at everything. We should not be great at everything, right? Nobody's going to pay for average. And honestly, like I enjoy certain things. I enjoy in recruiting agents. I enjoy in developing agents, mentoring agents. I enjoy growing businesses. I enjoy doing deals. That's what I like to do. Yeah. I do not enjoy being in the brokerment and reviewing agents' paperwork or answering questions about compliance. That's not really what I want to do. And again, there are people in our designated broker, David, he's phenomenal at that.
Yeah.
He loves that stuff.
Over the top.
Right. He loves it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That's not where I play. That's not my sandbox.
Yeah.
You see, so we got to identify our strengths, what we're good at, and just double down on those, right? And then whatever you're not enjoying, whatever is not really paying you that much money, sub it out, farm it out, find somebody else. And the book that I love, and I share this book with every business owner out there, it's called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Ben Hardy. Awesome book. There's another one that just came out. I think they wrote a second book called 10X, I think is easier than 2X. It's another great book on again, it's all about the power of leverage. We're leveraging through people, we're leveraging through systems, we're leveraging through capital. That's really the whole notion of being a business owner. You have to utilize all of them to grow and scale. It cannot be just you doing everything. It cannot be that of a control freak.
And I feel like just with the conversations too, like what you just said is very important, is understanding all three of those and not just mastering like one of them. You know, like some people, you know, leveraging systems, you can get caught up in that, or, you know, just leveraging the people. Like you have to have it all in place, I feel like, to really have that ecosystem in that business that you want to have.
Yeah, man, right? it's like a growing brokerage, right? Or a brokerage that is a successful brokerage. You gotta have the infrastructure, the systems, right? You gotta have the personnel, the people, right? You gotta have the marketing, right? The lead gen piece of it, right? You gotta have sales, the recruiting piece of it, right? You got to have compliance. Like all of those, they got to be part of one puzzle in order for you to have a real company. Uh-huh. Now, it's not going to happen right away. I mean, it took me 3 years, and we're still growing. We're nowhere near where we're going to be in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, 5 years down the road. But we have a good core in place that we can grow. We can grow to another 100 agents, another 300 agents, and don't feel like, man, things are just going to like freaking break. Are they going to bend? Absolutely. Are we going to be experiencing growing pains? Absolutely. But like the core is here for us to like grow another 100%, 200% without really breaking a lot of things.
Yeah.
Internally, yeah.
Okay. So you just kind of covered infrastructure. What are some key things as far as infrastructure would you say is important for a brokerage owner?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with infrastructure, you gotta have you gotta have tech, right? You gotta have a place where the efficiencies, the work that your staff is doing, the agents that are doing is streamlined, right? So for us, let's take on the recruiting side of things, right? You know, we have a broker growth CRM that we've been using for the last 2.5, 3 years. It's been helping us tremendously in terms of automations, funnels, offers that we put out, follow-up sequences, automations when it comes to the onboarding, even offboarding, which is part of it. You know, not every agent is going to be part of your organization for the rest of the life. Training, like all of that is like that's one piece of the infrastructure. That's recruiting, right? So having that in place is huge, because like where I was talking to a client of ours yesterday is like, man, I hired like 3 agents last month, and I've been just so bogged down with all of these questions and trainings. I'm personally training them. I'm personally doing this. I'm personally doing that. I was like, dude, like, who's onboarding your people? And he's like, oh, it's all me. I was like, do you have an admin? Yeah, but she's doing other stuff. I was like, okay, so like, what about like training? Like when you're training them, are you recording your sessions? And he's like, no, not really. It's just in my office. I was like, well, I think the next thing you want to do is every time you train somebody, you want to make sure that it's like through a screen share where you record every single training, class, whatever you're doing, it's recorded and then uploaded in our training module. The CRM that you actually started using from us, do that. Like we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos on everything. So if we have an agent that has a question about certain thing, hey, here's the link to it. Go check it out.
Yep. It's all
Right.
there.
And that's how you're going to be able to scale. And because he had 3 agents that he hired who's super excited about it, but because he's spending so much time with these agents, he's not hiring more.
Yeah.
He's not recruiting. He stopped recruiting.
Yeah, because he's just worried about.
Right. So having the infrastructure when it comes to the recruiting piece of it is that, right? Then let's say, for example, the internals, like for example, using the brokerment for transaction management. So we use brokerment, transaction management. So it's all paperless. Agents have access to it. Our DB has access to it. Our operations department has access. Accounting department. They all have access to all of the documents, all of the reports, the revenues, the closings, the commissions, the splits. All of that is right there. So that's part of the infrastructure as well, right? Then systems, everything that we have in a company, like we have checklist after checklist after checklist, everything, right? That's an infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can put an office space as an infrastructure, but I mean, it can be debatable. I mean, there are successful brokerages out there that don't even have an office space, right?
Exactly.
But to answer your question, I think like anything to do with tech and systems is definitely part of the infrastructure.
Part of it, yeah.
Part of it, correct.
Part of it. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. So having the tech, the systems, all of that stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next money model then. So we covered basically recruiting, which is the first one, right? Hiring. We dove in a little bit into infrastructure. Now let's talk revenue drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's something that you from the start, I mean, even with me working for you, that was like some stuff we started plugging in, like on the marketing side and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know you as soon as you thought it was right, you opened up the title and the mortgage and stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe dive into why did you want these additional revenue drivers, and you already had the brokerage, and like what's your vision with it? Like what's the purpose?
Yeah. I think that was another reason why I decided to start a brokerage. It gave me more flexibility to start my own mortgage company and then a title company, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have, they call them ancillaries. Some people call them verticals. If you think about it, real estate brokerage is like the epicenter, right, of the deal flow.
Yeah.
So we are the ones who are generating deals. Our agents are, right? And then we're sending those deals to like who? We're sending those deals to the mortgage company, title company, PNC, property and casualty insurance, home inspector. So they're all getting a piece of the pie, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, why not us? Why not us getting the piece of each of that pie?
Yeah.
So for me, that was the main reason, I think. And also the second thing I think is like if you can actually deliver a really solid service, a good service when it comes to mortgage as well as title and then insurance, I mean, the agent's going to love that. Their clients are going to love that, right? There's money to be made in mortgage. There's money to be made in title. There's money to be made in insurance, right? And those are kind of like the verticals, right? But then there are internal revenue drivers that I think any brokerage at any level can adapt. Mm-hmm. For instance, like E&O insurance, right? E&O insurance, like we charge E&O insurance lump sum on the first transaction. That's what we do. We charge $600 on a first transaction. So we collect close to like $45,000, I think this year maybe $50,000 in E&O insurance, right? We don't pay $50,000 in E&O insurance, right? But that's a revenue driver.
Yeah.
You mentioned about marketing, right? So this is something that we're done for the last 2.5 years. I mean, we have over 40 of our agents on the program where they're paying us for our services to help them lead generate. So we have a lead generating packages that are available. And we also have packages to help them with the branding. So they can come to our office, they can shoot videos or they can send videos, and we have an editing team that will edit those videos. We even will sit down with them and really kind of give them the topics to record. Like we do everything for them. We add captions. We will create a long form video, a mid form video, a short form video, a podcast. We will distribute it to all of their social media platforms. We will email it to their database. We would retarget to all of their SOI and past client audience on Facebook and Instagram. Like we do the entire thing. We have an agency model within our company for our agents. Right now, in the last 4 or 5 months, we're seeing amazing success with guarantee listing program that we have, where agents paying as little as $11 for a seller lead, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing crazy results as far as that goes. But that's a huge value proposition that we're offering to our agents in our brokerage. That is a huge revenue driver for us.
So I actually have a question for that. This isn't like really traditional, what you're doing. When you decided to do that. I mean, like when I came on board, like as we talk to a lot of brokerage owners, they don't really have this like agency within a brokerage style. When it comes to that, like what made you think of that? Is it just, did you see like a gap in the market or what? I mean,
yeah, man. I mean, like if you think about it, right? I had a conversation with an agent today, 20 years in business. And 3 years ago, she closed like 30 plus deals. Last year, she did 18 deals. And this year, she's at around 4 or 5 deals. And it's a husband and wife team. And I was like, what is your biggest struggle right now? The one area of your business that you want to really focus on? And she's like, look, I had a marketing person that was with me for about 5 years, and she decided to leave us about 1.5 years ago. And we used to get so much business out of my sphere and my clients, past clients. We used to do all these events, and everything pretty much stopped in the last 1.5 years.
wow.
And she's like, I just don't have the time. And then she's dealing with some personal stuff with her parents, and her business dropped. And I hear these conversations quite frequently where agents are like, look, I'm good at developing relationships. I'm good at nurturing those relationships. I'm good at negotiating awesome deals for my clients. I'm good at providing like exceptional service, right? But when it comes to like marketing, when it comes to branding, when it comes to lead generation in general, like I'm overwhelmed or I'm inconsistent. I don't know where to start. A lot of times it goes by the sideways. And this was really the reason, like, hey man, why not have this inside? Why do we have to hire a third-party company, right? Someone who is with questionable track record, and having my agent to work with them and pay him $1,000 or $2,000 a month, right? And not getting any type of results at all, right? Why not have it inside? And like I said, we were fortunate enough to come across you 3 years ago, where initially that was not even our thought process. Initially, you were like supposed to be like, hey man, let me help you with the social media stuff for the company. But the more and more we started talking to the agents, the more we started hearing their pain points. They all had very common pain points, which was like, look, I want to brand myself. I want to build my brand on social media because really, if you think about it, the brand is your number one currency right now. Like before, it was all about cold calling, which is fine. But right now, the more videos you put out, the better it's going to be. Videos right now, it's almost like better like cold calling.
Yeah.
Right? So agents don't know where to start. Agents get overwhelmed. They do 2, 3, 4, 5 videos. They run out of topics. Agents spend too much time on editing.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's just so many things that agents trying to do. And that's not what we get paid to do. We pay to go out there, develop, build connections, build relationships, sell homes. We're not paid to edit videos, add captions, thumbnails.
Yeah.
None of that shit.
Yeah.
Like let the professionals, let the experts handle that. So for us, it was like around 2 years ago, I think it was like, man, like we can help our agents, right?
Yeah.
And I wish there would be more agents that would be like, man, I see the value here. Absolutely, right? But that's one of the things. That's why one of our main revenue drivers, along with Closing coordination, like transaction coordinator, that's another one. Our membership fees, the VA services that our agents utilize. What else we have? I'm probably missing some other ones, but those are the main ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So question for you then. Like a lot of brokerage owners are probably if they're listening right now, and it's the same question. I think I asked you this about. I think was it last week when we went to lunch. How do you find that talent? Like how do you know when it's the right person, or how did you even like come across myself? What would you tell the brokerage owners and stuff, like, because like some people we talk to, they're like, that's great, you have all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know where to find them. That's not around in my. That's
a good question, man. I mean, again, you got to make that decision, right? So I always plan 6 to 12 months ahead. Like that's what I do. I'm constantly thinking about, all right, the next move, right? The next replacement of me, because ultimately you want to replace yourself. You continually replace yourself, right? And you got to look for that talent. Now, I made a lot of bad hires. Some of them.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop me from looking for talent, right? Because when you look, you will find.
Yeah.
And it may not be the perfect candidate that checks all of the boxes, but I'd rather take somebody who's at 70% capacity of what I do, 80% of capacity of what I do, versus like try to do everything myself.
Yeah.
And get just burned out and overwhelmed, right? So we look for talent everywhere, dude. Like, I mean, job post, referrals, person that I see like Starbucks, like my buddy right now, David,
Yeah.
He's 16 years old, right? So he's a family friend. We know each other I remember him in diapers.
Yeah.
Right, so he's 16 years old. Summer is off. He goes to Pinnacle High School, and we had a conversation over lunch. And I'm like, "What are you doing during summer?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to New York. I'm going to be in New York for like a month and a half to 2 months." I was like, "What's in New York?" He's like, "I'm just gonna like hang around and this and that." And I was like, "Dude, do you want to make like some money?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." I was like, "Well, come and work for me." It's like, "What am I going to be doing?" Cold outreach, call agents, set appointments, right? So this guy's been here for like a month, and I think he's averaging about two to three appointments sets a day.
Yeah.
Again, 16 years old, super talented.
Yeah, he's
right?
amazing on the phone.
Amazing. And then we got Tanner, who basically he sent me a resume, right? And he's like, "Hey, Alan, I want to work for you. I'm 19 years old, but I'm going off to college like at the end of August." And I was like, "Dude, I don't want you for 3 months. Like, I need somebody who's going to be here for a long time." And I said, "All right, I'll call you. Like, let me do some additional research on you. I'll call you back." Then, like 3-4 days later, he calls me back, leaves me a message. I ignored him, and then he calls me back again. I was like, "Man, this guy's persistent, right?" So I was like, "Man, he's 19 years old, but he sounds like so mature for his age." So we brought him in. Melissa interviewed him, and she's like, "I like him." I was like, "All right, you hired." So he's appointment setter, and this guy is like on average sets like 4 or 5 appointments a day for us.
How many do you think how many do you think they've booked combined in the past
30 days?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I would say probably 100.
Yeah, at least
100 appointments.
Yeah.
But we also had people that were in that role, and I paid them more. They didn't work out.
Yeah.
They didn't work out. Right? So it's a trial and error, but every time you get better at it, you get better at looking at the talent, finding talent, asking questions, right? And bring them on, and you're setting expectations. You're managing those expectations. You have a short leash. You don't have that leash where they can linger around for 2 months, even a month. If you're not really seeing them, like right now, I know if I hire another appointment setter and after day number 1, they're not booking at least 1 to 2 appointments, they're not going to work out. Like David, 16 years old, the second day, he booked 2 appointments.
Yeah.
Tanner, the first day he booked 3 appointments. Right? So it's a very simple script, by the way. And I can share that script.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, if anyone wants that, just reach out to us. I mean, it's
But if you're not booking, if you're not doing this, and by the way, they only work part-time. Here's another thing.
yeah.
Right? They only work 5 hours a day, which is another thing that I learned, because before it was full-time. And here's what happens. After about 4 or 5 hours, the production numbers just go down because they're tired. Like you can spend a certain amount of time during the day on like cold calling. After like 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, you're down. Like your energy levels are just down. So we're getting the same output, actually a better output with a part-time individuals versus we used to have like working people here for 7 or 8 hours and getting less appointments.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so you've decided to double down and have them in their
Always have a
highest perform-
competition, right? You always look for trades. Like I'm looking for somebody like you used to play basketball in high school, right? Almost got drafted, but your height did not allow. You stopped growing after freshman year.
Well, to be fair, there are some very talented people that are my height.
But what I'm saying is, I'm looking for people that like played in sports, team sports, right? Like that's important, right? Resiliency is part of it. Discipline, routines, like all of those things are important. So like Tanner, for example, he played golf, played baseball in high school.
He's very competitive.
Very competitive.
Yeah.
David plays golf, plays basketball, and I see my son, he plays basketball, right? Yeah. Very competitive, right? Wants to win, right? Those are really important traits to have when you're bringing somebody in any position, especially when it comes to like sales, right? Super important.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, that's great advice for anyone. I mean, I was wondering that too. Sometimes I look around, I'm looking at Melissa doing all her stuff, and then I look back and then I just see 9 appointments booked on the back on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And then we got all these agents coming talking about lead gen. Erica's in the meetings. I'm like, how did he do this?
Yeah.
Like this is like it's like something everyone envisions, but you said, you always have to have that. You have to be always looking.
Yeah, I mean, like again, going back to the wrong hires, we hired somebody who came with all of these credentials, and it was a complete and utter flop. Yeah. And not only a flop, but like leaving after a month and a half, 2 months, and then trying to poach our agents and bad-mouthing the company. And we left on a really good terms, I thought. But it's going to happen. Like, man, entrepreneurship, business ownership, man, it's a freaking bloody sport. Every day you're going to get punched. You're going to be kicked in the teeth. There are going to be days where you're doubting and like asking yourself, why the hell am I doing this? Right? It's going to happen. That's the reality of it. Any idiot can start a business, with all due respect. Not every person can grow and scale a business. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes, a lot of that resiliency and pressure and 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 1 step back. Like, it's not easy, man. Like, and even like right now with everything that we're dealing with, man, there's still stuff where I'm like, man, I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable. Yeah. We can get much better at everything that we do inside. Much better. Mm-hmm. We're nowhere close. Yeah. And we cannot just sit and celebrate our wins. That's another thing. Like I don't do that. Like even when during my listing days, every time I would get a listing, for me it would be like, next. I gotta find next listing. I gotta find next client. I gotta find next. For me, it's always next. So right now it's like, okay, what's the next thing with the brokerage? What's the next thing with our education coaching? Like what's the next? I'm never content. I'm never like sitting there and saying, oh, I made it, or no.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, there's that people say, well, you know what, you gotta kind of step back and kind of appreciate what you have. And I appreciate everything that I have. I really do. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, no, I can tell every day.
I appreciate, I am so fortunate, so blessed on so many different levels. Like, I have an amazing family. I got health. Man, I mean, everything, I mean, you know, knock on wood. I mean, I'm not complaining. I appreciate everything that I have. But at the same time, I know I can do better.
Yeah.
And we can do a little better.
Yeah. And like maybe just like you just appreciate even like the processes of things just because of like everything you've talked about today. I mean, your journey.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to sit there and realize like, oh, this is all great. Like every morning you come in, you're like, I'm alive. Let's go.
It puts a lot of things in perspective, right? Especially with everything that we have seen. I mean, I seen, you know, like even like going a little bit into like personal stuff, like, you know, we lost our mom about 5 months ago, and it was so hard, it was so difficult, it was so painful for us to see how this disease, you know, was just destroying her in such a short period of time. To see that, to see how this person that was an amazing human being, great, looked great, everything was fine, in a very short period of time, just got destroyed, ripped apart. And it was hard to see that. And again, that's, you know, it's so important for us to, again, don't take those things for granted, like health. Like there are things in life that are very important, and there are also things in life that are priceless. So the priceless things in life are going to be your family, your faith, your health. Those are the things like priceless. Like a person that is not healthy, the only thing that he wants in life is health.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
That's a really good point.
Right? The person that doesn't have a family or lost a family or lost a family member, there's no way they're going to get that person back. You can make all the money in the world.
Yeah.
You can grow businesses. You can buy properties. You can buy cars. You can do so many other things. Those are very important things, all of those things. But in reality, you think there are only certain things in life that are priceless. Family, spouse, that's another thing. Like imagine, like younger agents ask me, right? Hey, what's the most important thing? And I'm like, and I kind of like surprise them. And I tell them like, hey, it's actually like someone in your life. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, your spouse. Or let's say your fiance or girlfriend, but let's say it's spouse. Why? Because when you have somebody who is true believer by your side, next to you, somebody who's there during ups and downs, somebody who's supporting you, believing in you, trusting in you, especially during the times when it's very easy to point fingers and say, I told you so, and I went through a lot of that stuff. If you have somebody like that in your life, man, everything else is so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
Versus if you have somebody who is constantly being negative, questioning, being disparaging, pulling you down, like that crab analogy, when you like drop all the crabs in a bucket and one's trying to get out, they're pulling that crab down. Like if you got somebody like that in your life, then everything else is just, it's hard. Growing a business is hard. Being successful is hard because you have somebody there who's not believing in you, who's not trusting you, who's not supporting you, right?
Yeah.
So when I say that, they're like, oh man, it makes sense. And then of course the follow-up question, like, so where do you get that person? Where do you find that person?
Where do I find them?
Yeah, like, you know, there's Tinder.
There's Tinder.
There's another site. Is it Tinder? Is it?
I mean, there's
Is it Bumble or
Bumble, yep.
Bubble or Bumble?
Bumble.
We
It's
actually
Bumble.
want an agent that got like 3-4 deals out of, I think,
Yeah,
Tinder or
yes.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
He compliments.
So if you do have a Tinder and you're looking for agents or you're looking for buyers or sellers, just throw that in there, realtor or real estate brokerage.
If you're looking for leads,
Yeah,
go
leads.
on Tinder. Be nice to ladies,
Yep.
and they will refer you business.
Oh man. No, but those are really good points. You know, I mean, it all kind of circles back to your story. To, you know, and it's just everything kind of makes sense when you talk about that stuff and seeing how it's amazing to see what it's evolved into as well in your personal life and also in business. Like a lot of people could have stopped at a lot of those moments that you struggle in, said, you know what, I'm not doing it anymore. And then you just every time when we talk about it, I'm like, man, it just gets worse and worse. And he's like, and then you just say, you know what? I kept pushing. I went right through it.
Well,
and I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, the biggest takeaways that I have today.
You have to, man. I mean, you know, pressure makes diamonds, right? And anything that is worth in diamonds or worth in gold, man, it takes time. And you're gonna go through so many cycles and mental ninja moves inside, and man, it's not an easy road. But if you want to build something special, if you want to build something successful, I mean, you're going to have to go through it.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the journey. Yeah. And by the way, I love it. It's, you know, it's who I am. You know, it's what really made me as a person.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't think I would be where I'm at right now if I didn't go through everything that I went through in the last, 40 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, this is great advice. I mean, it's a very impactful call. I hope if you're a brokerage owner and you're listening to this, to think about the things that he talked about, all the trial and error, to hopefully fast track the process so that way you guys can, scale right now and not have to repeat the same mistakes that Alan made, and you can, be able to fast track the process and, get on the same path that he has to success right now. So one thing before we stop, before we turn this off, where can they find you right now? I know Instagram, you're pushing out content. Guys, he has a ton of great content right now he's putting out on Instagram. Your hand, do you know your handlebar?
I'm trying to get a little serious with Instagram.
Yeah. Watch out, Instagram. Seriously.
We'll see. I mean, look, it's, on Facebook, it's my name, Alan Kushmakov. Same thing on IG. I think same thing on Twitter. Threads.
Yeah, Threads. Threads.
That one. YouTube, same thing. Again, that's where they can find me. They can find my content, and make sure you follow and subscribe.
Yeah,
we're definitely looking for followers and people that will subscribe.
And guys, we're just scratching the surface here. I've been grateful to be in the journey and be a process and work with Alan and see the brokerage grow and everything, and so join the journey. Watch this scale. I mean, Alan's got big goals, and I think it'd be great learning lessons and everything for you guys to tune in and have you guys be part of it as well. So also too, one last thing, make sure to check out his bio. If you guys do check out his Instagram and his Facebook, we have a free private Facebook group for brokerage owners and team leaders who want to fast track this process.
Yeah.
That he pretty much gave. Like the 5 money models, we talk about this every single day. We're giving you free trainings, all of that. And if you guys are also interested in learning more about working with Alan personally, we could discuss that further. But anyways, thank you, Alan, for hopping on right now.
Appreciate it, brother.
Love it. And if anyone has any questions or like to reach out, make sure to follow us and reach out. We're here to help you guys.
Peace out.